Hello, Ivy here. I'm back. Thank you for all the lovely posts that you've been putting on social media. I do appreciate it. Thank you very much. Today's podcast is called UK Media, Stop Clinging to the Sussex Wave. The British royal family and its media are acting exactly like an ex-spouse who is angry that their victim has escaped from their abusive behaviour. The abusers double down on the abuse as a way of trying to give the impression that they still had control over the actions of Harry and Meghan. Since Harry and Meghan have managed to leave that perceived gilded prison, there has been an increasing sinister nature to the public attacks on the couple. Meghan in particular, all done via UK media partners. The risks on their lives and that of their child, and now an unborn child, have increased enormously. There is no sign of the British royal family standing down from these attacks, and there still seems to be some kind of strange belief that if harm comes to Meghan and children, in whatever form, then the marriage would end, and Harry would somehow return to the UK and forget about all the abuse dished out to him and his family. At this point, in theory, Harry would be alone, and without a purposeful role other than to be a whipping boy for William. Only people with an evil mindset could ever possibly believe that Harry would return to be the royal slave, under any circumstances. I have come to the conclusion that the British royal family are cold, and the security of a monarchy for decades to come is the only thing that matters. The end justifies the means. True cult-like behaviour. The fact of the matter is, Harry and Meghan have escaped the royal plantation and are doing very well indeed in providing for their family, including paying for their own security in the USA. This follows Prince Charles's decision to withdraw security for the Sussexes without warning, 3 months before the official date agreed by the Queen for the couple to step back from being senior working royals. Royal family then gave away the location where Harry and Meghan were staying in Canada, and did the same thing again when they first moved to the USA. Despite that betrayal by his family, the Sussexes did not fall at the barriers clearly placed in their way. The Archwell Foundation has been running for over 12 months now and is supporting an increasing range of sustainable projects and charities. Harry and Meghan have their own home, and it is clear that they will never reside in the UK again. Frogmore Cottage has been paid back in full, and rent has been paid in advance for a number of years. The Sussexes owe no one, and they do not cost the UK taxpayer a penny. The couple are independent and self-financing. Why, then, are the family intent on ruining this couple? The abuse behind palace walls needs to be made public. All we do know is that Meghan felt suicidal whilst pregnant with Archie and sought help from the royal HR team, but was refused assistance on the basis that she was not considered an employee, and it would also look bad on the royal family that a member of the said family was in need of mental health assistance. I think the real reason was that it would shine a light on not only the UK media, who were acting on behalf of the royal family anyway, but also the treatment by the royal family itself towards Meghan. We all now know that the royal family made no financial provision for Meghan when she married into the family. In reality, She was treated like the slave of the royal family. So, to drive someone to the point where they wanted to commit suicide, I fail to see how they believe that Harry could put all that to one side and return to the UK on his own, whether his wife was alive or not, and be all right with the abuse that had gone on, and somehow become a compliant slave to help his brother and wife, who were one of the key players in the abuse that was dished out to the Sussex family. No mention of the Sussex children, where there are already plans afoot to introduce new laws that will prevent Sussex children from having titles and having the option to walk away if they chose to do so at 18 years of age, the same right given to all the other royal children. Note, all other children in the royal family, even those whose parents are not considered senior or high in the line of succession, have titles, unless the parents decided otherwise. All of those royals live in tax-funded homes, and properties are all worth more than the former servant shack allocated to Harry and Meghan, and for which the couple had to repay all the renovation costs for a property they did not own. In reality, only the adult and the children of colour in the royal family were or are scheduled to be removed from royal documentation. Meghan was removed from Archie's birth certificate without permission of the parents. It appears they were notified but not consulted about such amendments. Only Meghan's title remains. Harry's name and title is still on the birth certificate. Every other child born within the royal family have both parents' names on their birth certificates. Only the person of colour has been omitted. No name. Just like slaves from the plantation, no identity, just a title, which could mean anyone in the future when history books are read for information. The dehumanization of people of colour from the white royal bloodline is a common trait of white supremacists throughout history. Typical behaviour of a racist clan. Treat them like slaves who have no rights. If someone did that outside of the royal family in the UK, it would be against the law. With the government in place in the UK at the moment, and for the foreseeable future, that situation will not change. This is the government who is behind the recent report on racism in the UK, which has declared that it is a role model country for other mainly white populated countries in the world to operate in terms of their ethnic minorities. The whole report is deeply offensive and so far from truth and accuracy, it is an affront to common decency and ensures that the future is far from bright for people of colour in the UK. It is time to highlight what the abusers have been doing and to bring it out into the light. It is time to see the huge machinery of resources that has been put in place to administer this level of ongoing cruelty to members who wish to move away from the control of the UK British royal family. It is time to bring it to the seats of international lawmakers and courts and to right the many wrongs that have been done to this couple, and to ensure that it never happens again to anyone in a similar position. If individuals outside of the royal family bubble had done any of these things to other members of the family, there would have been a multitude of professional organisations and law enforcement, child protection agencies and the like, beating down the door. Just because it is happening behind gilded gates should not make it admissible. Abuse is abuse. Child abuse is child abuse. Mental health is mental health. None of these things are any less important because of the location of the abuse, and no abuser should be allowed to continue their activities because of where they live, and that they are related in any way to the monarch. This is 2021. We know better than that, or at least lawmakers should. And as the last guardian of a legal process, international law establishments should not stand by and ignore victims of abuse just because the abusers are related to the monarch, and the premises in which the abuse takes place is off limits to normal law enforcement. It is important to reiterate here that the abuse in respect of the Sussexes, and in particular Meghan, is still happening, even though Harry and Meghan no longer reside in the UK, forced out in order to protect life and limb because of the continual abusive actions taken by the media, authorised by the royal family. I really want to know how, under international law, an American citizen was abused over a 4-year period in the UK and no one questioned the activity. Abused to the point that suicidal ideation followed as a direct result of the years-long campaign to destroy Meghan in any way possible, in order that she would be removed from the equation by any means, and that Harry would be controlled again and return the British royal family's positive image with no spotlight on their diminishing purpose in a modern society. The British royal family consider themselves advocates of many things, including acting as token representatives of various mental health initiatives. It is beyond offensive as to how dangerous that role is when we consider the actual truth of the matter. The royal family are not advocates of anything but self-preservation of the monarchy, and if that means appearing to care about various causes and showing up now and then to smile and wave and show concerned expressions when speaking to the staff of these organisations, or smiling on camera via Zoom sessions, they will do it a few times a year to a few organisations. These visits or Zoom calls are then listed in royal records as work, an hour or two here or there. The reality is that Meghan, an American citizen, was abused in a variety of ways on UK soil for over 3 years. And it continued in Canada and continues now that she's home in California. When the abuse is carried out daily by UK media, the propaganda arm of the royal family, victims have the right to expect protection under the law. Whilst Meghan was being ill-treated behind palace gates by a UK monarchy who presides over UK subjects, a monarchy who made it clear Meghan was not family, no financial provision made for her upon marriage, paid all her own expenses, not an employee either, so not entitled to healthcare or shown any concern, despite knowing that Meghan was suicidal. If UK law is under pressure to turn a blind eye, then the independence of international law should be visibly taking the reins. By their own admission, The royal family did not give Meghan a designation. Even her name was removed from her child's birth certificate. Like so many things relating to history of the UK monarchy, rewriting history is not new to them. But in this day and age, it should not be allowed. Legal entities in the UK seem reluctant to take action, or in fact show any concern of any abuse that has been going on for decades, if not longer, to children and adults behind palace walls. Now we have an American citizen who was psychologically shackled by UK royalty and its tabloid press under their instruction, and the tentacles of abuse actions have continued on Canadian and then now on USA soil, as I said earlier. Lawmakers and protection agencies turned a blind eye in the UK for 4 years, and I have yet to understand how an American citizen can be held like a prisoner in her residence in the UK with all her personal documentation held by the HR team for the British royal family and told to be 50% of herself and to make herself less visible, cut off from friends and needing permission to do things. There is no law in the UK that HR needs to hold your passport, driving licence, credit cards and keys, which is what the British royal family did to Meghan. HR only needs to see the originals and photocopy said documents such as passport and driving licence, and then officially stamp the copies and state on those copies that the originals have been seen. No regulation requires any organisation to hold on to the originals. It is also illegal to alter a birth certificate, whether or not the parents were informed. Meghan is the only person of colour in the royal family and the only one to have her name removed from her child's birth certificate, and with only the title left on this important document. Again, I ask the question or make the statement, I really would like to know how a USA citizen is allowed to be a victim of abuse in the UK, and that it continues even though Meghan is now back on home soil. 100 plus of abusive articles are written in the UK press most days about Harry and Meghan, particularly Meghan. TV programmes have panels of non-entities discussing Sussexes in the most disparaging and cruel ways. Again, I ask the legal experts here and in the USA, why is this allowed to go on? I know that hatred attracts income, so it is clear why the evil souls who pursue such activities do what they do. But people have died in the UK due to behaviour of the UK media, and many more are dealing with the aftermath of being on the receiving end of such treatment. To the credit of the Sussexes, they are now building a new life, but I have no doubt there is so much trauma present, and there has been no time to heal. It has been firefighting all the way, and the constant worry of risk to life. Meghan was abused and harassed during her first pregnancy. The aim was to cause a miscarriage. To hear in the Oprah interview that Meghan had suicidal thoughts during that pregnancy came as a shock in some ways. But then, when we think of events that have gone on over this time, it was not a surprise. When we recall the behaviour of UK tabloids during that period towards Meghan, 2 years plus of daily abuse at that point would have driven many others to that way of thinking before that point in time. It proves how strong Meghan is and how much she endured, and yet the royal family and its press never relented. We are lucky to have Meghan and Archie here today. Harry knew he had to find a way to escape with his family for their safety and mental health. When the news of the Sussexes' miscarriage was announced in 2020, the venom continued. It was beyond disgusting. There is a podcast discussing the role of UK media and the royal family and the various hate groups out there who piled on the abuse during this period. I will link the podcast on the news site in the archive section for information. Be warned, it is a very emotionally charged podcast. I repeat, why has no legal action been taken against those responsible for abusive behaviour on a daily basis? Abusers who are UK citizens in terms of the media and the British royal family, and the UK and internationally based hate groups and individuals, many with monetised accounts, operating with borderline illegal activity and certainly inciting hatred. A prominent USA citizen has been the victim of various forms of abuse for over 4 years, and it is continuing on USA soil. How is this allowed to happen? When Princess Diana was abused and ultimately met her death, many UK citizens had their own ideas why the legal system did nothing about it. Please, USA, do not be the same. Do not turn a blind eye to abuse. Do not allow a situation like in USA gymnastics to take 30 years to begin court proceedings against adults carrying out abuse. Many more are still working with children who are at risk. Do not allow the Sussex family to continue to live in fear for their lives or their mental health. A new baby is due very shortly, and the interest from UK haters will be feral. I implore you to do something. Mental health does not discriminate between societal stratas of income. The recent documentary series produced by Harry and Oprah is powerful, and I am sure will be an educational aid for years to come, as well as a recipient of many awards, I am sure. There have to be alternatives to achieve peace and tranquility other than a heart that is no longer beating. The Sussexes, like all citizens, deserve protection under the law. The UK is ignoring their legal obligations because Harry married a person of colour and he dared to walk away from the royal plantation to protect his family and to be able to develop a range of sustainable humanitarian projects without the couple having to dim their light in order to allow mediocre, incompetent, self-serving people to shine. The world does not need to see another Princess Diana incident. In March 2021, there was breaking news which indicated proof of collusion between members of the UK media and the royal family. We have known that the papers have been publishing hate-inciting articles, around 100 plus articles a day, which is one form of abuse in itself. One TV presenter has had a hateful vendetta against Meghan since 2017, and it reached new depths post the Sussex wedding in May 2018. It was a daily onslaught, including interviewing various members of the paternal side of Meghan's family, many of whom Meghan had not seen in over a decade. The worst and most prominent individual in those attacks and TV interviews with the said presenter was Meghan's father. There was an incident towards the end of March 2021 where this same presenter walked off set from his daily morning TV programme, following an altercation with another presenter on the show. That presenter has since left the employ of the TV network concerned, following a barrage of complaints about this man's tirade again relating to Meghan's interview with Oprah, talking about her suicidal thoughts and the state of her mental health. In an interview some days later, this same presenter referred to the royal family and said that he had received recent messages from members of the said royal family thanking him for standing up to the Sussexes. Proves collusion with the royal family, and it's to be noted that the royal family have not come out and denied it, and that his daily tirade against Meghan was allowed to continue because it was sanctioned by the monarch. Any other presenter would have been told to cool it long before March, and if that presenter was a person of colour, they would have been fired within weeks of such behaviour 4 years ago. The same presenter was given a 2-page spread in a tabloid, which she writes for every weekend, and who was the tabloid that Meghan won her historical recent court case. So that explains why this particular tabloid gave him a platform to make threats towards Meghan, telling her that he is not finished yet, and with a large photo of him pointing his finger. The level of harassment and stalking he does regarding Meghan is dangerous and way off the scale now. Since he became unemployed from his TV role, the man appears unhinged, and worryingly, he has a home in the USA and has residency in California, as well as the UK. I recently came across a thread on a social media platform from an academic, Dr. Claire Hardacre, PhD, who did a study on the number of articles written by this said presenter in the last year. Thank you, Dr. Hardacre, for granting permission for me to use these stats in this podcast. Dr. Hardacre looked at 12 months of headlines written by the presenter. There were 84 in total. Researching all the words used statistically, the presenter's Christian and surname was third and fourth on the list. He clearly loves talking about himself. Coming in at 9, 23rd and 32nd was Trump, Biden and President. The presenter's interest in US politics is well documented. In 26th and 35th place were Harry and Meghan. In fact, both appear in 17 headlines in total. That is one headline every 3 weeks for a year, and one in every 5 dedicated to writing something about one or both. The words and concepts used in the headlines about Meghan are as follows: brats, brazen, cynical, damage, deluded, diatribe, disgraceful, disowned, disregard, dump, garbage, hate, hypocrite, hypocrites, hypocritical, twice, narcissism, narcissistic, nauseating, parody, preach, propaganda, race baiting, tone deaf, victimhood, victims, virtue signalling, whiny, woke, 3 times, wrecked. Dr. Claire stated, and I quote, "Pretty sure that there is a project in here about abuse and harassment," end quote. The Sussexes have left the UK, just like UK media and fellow haters claim they wanted. Costs of Sussexes have always been quoted as the main reason for their gripes, but it was a smokescreen. All costs and rent paid in advance for years. They wanted Meghan to leave and for Harry to stay behind as a broken man, but being the foot soldier, poster boy or slave, whatever anyone wants to call it, for the royal family, Prince William in particular. This is what second and subsequent royal children are brought into the world to do, and they call it duty, and are referred to in a derogatory way as spares. Those children should never have any ambitions that outshine the heir to the throne. Even Harry's earned title of Major was never allowed to be used because it would have been above the rank achieved by his older brother. They underestimated Harry all his life and never expected him to walk away from the whole lot. All the tricks and barriers placed in front of the Sussexes in order to make them fall outside of the Paris gates all failed, and now they are hugely successful, self-financing, and cost the UK taxpayer nothing. The divorce from being a taxpayer royal is now absolute. The British royal family, through its propaganda team, refuse to move on. This is not the era like when Diana was treated so badly by the family and the media. Social media exists now. News travels fast and receipts exist. All of the sycophantic haters who thrive off hateful social media posts and activity should seek therapy and create a new life moving forward. Technology will soon seek you out, and there will be consequences for the reckless posting on social media one day. All that is required now is for USA and or international lawmakers to put an end to this continual abuse of an American citizen back on USA soil who is still being abused for clickbait income and revenge for escaping from the modern-day slave plantation paid for by UK taxpayers. A plantation where children and adults are abused with impunity. Born into opulence does not protect anyone from abuse. A regime supported by a government which has questions to answer on many legal fronts, and a backdrop of the impact of Brexit on UK residents, particularly those for people of colour. I will end this podcast with a reminder that Harry and Meghan never used any of the royal family's medical team or used the standard hospital team to give birth to Archie. The medical team was not revealed due to fear of harassment by the press. UK media had personnel outside all of the likely venues for the birth, trying to find any information possible. We now know it was also fear of harm to mother or baby or both. I am thankful that they are in the USA, and I know that things will have been put in place to secure a safe delivery and peace and calm in the days surrounding the birth of baby girl Sussex, rather than vigilante antics in the UK employed the last time. British royal family and media pals, your abused victims are now survivors. The divorce you asked for is now absolute. Time to move on and to focus on the royal family members you all claimed were relevant. Stop clinging to the Sussex waves of success. It appears to the world at large that the UK, having forced the family out of the country and realised that Sussexes have overcome every barrier the monarchy placed in front of them, are now highly successful. The royal family are now becoming desperate to tie themselves to the couple in any way possible, no matter how tenuous. It does not look in any way positive for the UK. The behaviour moves between criticising everything Harry and Meghan do in a negative way in an effort to sabotage their projects, and in the next breath, when the positive reports are so good, stories appear in the press how they want to encourage Harry and Meghan back into the fold. The latest performative action is to announce a huge, in courtiers' heads at least, street party celebration in London to celebrate the Jubilee for the Queen next year, due to take place in exactly 12 months' time. It is all part of the usual distraction approach. Every time a negative report comes out about the British royal family, another story appears within hours which they hope the public will focus on and comment on instead of the negative story about any of the royal family. This follows on from a report in one of the more serious newspapers in the UK that a document has come to light of the royal family refusing to employ people of colour or foreigners in office roles at any of their palaces. They would be considered only for servant roles. This stipulation was made in 1968. Alongside this rule, the British royal family ensured that it was written into UK law that they did not have to abide by equality legislation. The British royal family have made no comment since this article was published. Supporters of the monarch keep repeating that was in the 60s, where most businesses did that. What they are missing out is that the practice still occurs today, and the family still do not need to abide by equality legislation. One cannot but help wonder why anyone who would wish to be exempt from compliance with such laws if everything was being done in accordance with the law. It also means that for the few people who are employed in any role in the palaces, they have no route of legal redress if there is a problem. Whilst they are employed there, their employer in question is legally exempt from what the rest of the nation has to abide by. It almost goes without saying, if the British royal family did not want people of colour in their offices, then it should come as no surprise to us that they did not want a person of colour in their family. Hence the Meghan situation, and also the conversations debating the shade of their unborn first child's skin. I hope many of the UK media, royal reporters and TV presenters in particular, are held personally accountable in the courts for their actions and their words in articles against this couple. Never forget, karma has no clock. And that's all from me today. Hope you found that interesting. The next podcast is all about legislation, human rights in particular, and various incidents, categories that have been impacted and certainly directed in Harry and Meghan's vicinity. And in my opinion, they're all in breach of the law. So it's just really reinforcing what this one says, but in more detail. I will actually go through the articles, go through different sections, how it's been applied elsewhere, situations that are applicable to Harry and Meghan, and questioning, well, why hasn't the same thing been taken on their behalf? So human rights is the next podcast. Hope you enjoyed this. Bye for now from Ivy. Bye.